Hi, I'm Edwin Samuelson, and welcome to the CineFiles. I want to thank somebody very special here today, and I forgot to do this earlier, and this is something that is very important that I do. I want to thank somebody who helped us a great deal on this show, and if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have that wonderful opening. The person I want to thank is a person who has a newly acquired statue in their house, and it's an Oscar. That person is Bob Murawski. As you might know,
Here.
He won the Oscar for The Hurt Locker. And he's without a doubt one of the nicest people I've ever dealt with in the business in Hollywood. And he's been a friendly acquaintance of mine for almost 10 years now. And it's because of him that we got that wonderful opening and that access to the Sunshine Landmark Cinema here in the Village. And we were able to shoot that opening. And I also want to thank his partner, Sage Stallone, for allowing us the VIP treatment and treating us so well by allowing us that opening. And I want to congratulate Bob for his Oscar. You really did deserve it. And I'm not just saying that because you helped us so much. Of all the films last year that won Oscars, you definitely deserved it, as did The Hurt Locker. And I want to congratulate you on behalf of myself and the rest of the Cinephiles. And also thank you to Mike Felsher for for editing that sequence. But that was very important that I put that out there. Congratulations, Bob, and I hope that this Oscar leads to many new opportunities for you. All right, well, guys, let's talk about today. I'm sorry, as a terrible host I am today, I'm just not with it. I've had a bad day. I want to introduce my panel. To my left, Mr. Eric Cohen. To his left, Jeff Galashaw. And to his left, Michael Foltz. All right, the film we're going to be discussing today is a film that was
Wait, Ed, really quick, I want to thank somebody.
Yes.
I want to thank Mr. Richard Lynch for just being Richard Lynch, because he's put a body of work together as a very, very lizard-like human being.
He's a pretty scary dude, but I love him.
Okay.
In fact, if you want to see a good movie, see God Told Me To by Larry Cohen. All right, well, let's get into this today. This film that we're going to be discussing is a film that was actually up perhaps for Oscar consideration last year, but at the last minute it was pulled because supposedly the studio didn't have enough money to market the film accurately or properly. And that film is Martin Scorsese's Shutter Island, which again reteams him with Leonardo DiCaprio for the 4th time in a row, not including Shine a Light, of course. Basically making Leonardo DiCaprio Scorsese's new De Niro, I would say.
Yeah, he's his muse.
This one, I would have to say, of course, is based on a very famous book. It's a very unusual film for Scorsese. I would say this is a psychological thriller / horror film. This is the closest he's come, not including Cape Fear, to a real horror thriller. Yeah. And I admired a lot of what Scorsese did with this film. It takes a lot of elements of some of our favorite films, as Eric, as you've mentioned, The Ninth Configuration, which of an underrated classic with Stacy Keach. And
I did mention that.
Yes, yes, you did.
Off camera.
Yes, he did off camera to me.
You mean Twinkle Twinkle Killer Kane?
Yes, I have the original book before it was rewritten.
You know who's in that? Richard Lynch.
Oh my God, 6 Degrees.
Oh, isn't that fucked up?
It was 8 Degrees or 6 Degrees.
What do you think of that?
I'm very impressed by you.
Well, anyway, it takes elements of course, Ninth Configuration. What other films would you say?
Well, I definitely saw Ninth Configuration. In fact, like I told people, if I told you what this film most reminded me of, I'd be giving everything away. And that was Ninth Configuration, which has a similar premise and a similar twist. But it's a really good film.
Reminds me a little bit of Shock Corridor, too.
Has a bit of Shock Corridor, and there's definite homages to Shock Corridor in the film.
Yeah, definitely. He's got a lot of Sam Fuller
and it kind of
reminded
me in a weird kind of way. I remember you told me, Edwin told me that it reminded him very much of The Shining. And I could see where you're coming from in that, but it was another film it reminded me of that sort of inspired by Shining, which is Session 9.
Well, Session 9
kind of reminded me of that a little bit.
Session 9 is one of my, I'm going to go on record, Session 9 is one of my favorite films of the last 10 years.
Brad Anderson.
I think it's a brilliant film that was unfairly, overlooked, and now it's actually gotten some respect, and it proved Brad Anderson could really make a good film. Unfortunately, he went on to The Machinist, which was mixed.
It was all right.
It was okay.
Yeah, it was okay.
It was an interesting failure.
But it was also once again, another psychological, is this person there, is that person not there? Right. Awesome lead performance in Session 9 by Peter Mullen, one of my favorite character actors.
I got to give credit too, even, what's his name, David Caruso was actually pretty good in the movie. Actually the best thing he's ever done, which, not saying much, but he's very good in the movie. But let's not get into this, but Shutter Island also the reason that this film is so unusual for me, again, with Scorsese, is that it's a psychological thriller. There's a lot of visual, psychological elements, which I have not really seen in his films before.
Well, actually, I'm gonna say this. You might say that it's unusual for Scorsese, but if you know Scorsese, you've read his interviews, and you know what he's a fan of, actually, this is I'm surprised Scorsese hasn't gone this route before, because basically...
Or done it sooner.
Yeah, sooner, because like Scorsese, sooner. Scorsese is basically, getting his, pop cultural, Hitchcock love on with this film. I read the novel before I saw the movie. It's written by the same guy who wrote Mystic River.
Dennis Lehane.
Dennis Lehane. And, even
Jeff
reading the novel,
Lehane.
within the first chapter, you know what the twist is going to be. I mean, it's one of those things where, if your initial guess, you'll probably be right. But my feeling about the film was that it didn't matter. That wasn't the point. This was like Scorsese. He was just going to go all out and do his Hitchcock thing. Beautiful cinematography.
An exercise in style.
Luckily, I had the fortune of not reading the book before I saw the movie, so I thought it could go any other way. At first, I was thinking perhaps, a lot of these things that maybe he was going to be imprisoned on this island, I was thinking all these things, and it led to a twist which is not totally surprising, but it is some people said it's a red herring. Some people say it comes out of nowhere. I actually think it works very well. It segues all together and ties up pretty nicely.
It does, and it's intentionally ludicrous. You know what I mean? It's one of these things where it's like you're okay with it because it's meant to be this high operatic kind of piece that Scorsese wanted to put together. And I had a really good time with the film.
Oh, I enjoyed it quite a bit. And I love the homages, too, to Mario Bava. There is some Mario Bava homages.
He does. He has some Mario Bava in there. He has some Hammer in there.
Very British.
But I love, even his use. There's moments where he does sort of the Hitchcockian back screen kind of projection thing. Not as obvious as what Hitchcock's were, but still kind of cool and stunningly beautiful in its own way. And I enjoyed the hell out of him. Great, supporting cast.
Max von Sydow, great to see him as always. Ben Kingsley, probably the best performance he's given in years.
Elias Koteas.
Yes, love him.
Jackie Earle
Haley.
Very small
Patricia Clarkson,
Yeah, Patricia Clarkson's great in her little.
What's her name? Michelle
Williams.
Michelle Williams.
I have to say, of all the cameo performances, the one that stood out for most to me was the Patricia Clarkson role, because her role is very small, but it's a very vital part.
I love all the loopy, left field things they throw in there, like the conspiracy thing.
Well, even Buffalo Bill, what's his name?
Ted Levine.
Ted Levine.
Which was a great performance. That bit when they're driving in the Jeep.
Yes,
and they have a little conversation. It was hilarious and creepy and just so left field.
And I forget the name of the guy, but he's in so many movies these days. He was in Zodiac as Zodiac. He's also in it. I forgot his name, but he's.
I know who you're talking. I think his name is John Carroll Lynch.
Yes, I think that is him. He's very good in it as well.
Mark Ruffalo.
And Mark Ruffalo.
Really interesting performance by Mark Ruffalo, knowing who he's supposed to be. The advantage I had after reading the book, I could watch the movie and see if everything kind of fits into its twist. And I was paying attention to the performances, knowing who they were going into it.
Do you feel that the movie is an improvement over the book, or is it a faithful adaptation, or is it equal to the book?
It is a faithful adaptation. I wouldn't say the movie's the book is a great book. It's like a potboiler. It's an easy read. Whereas what Scorsese did, if he improves on the book, he understands what it is, and so he really decides to have fun with it. It's an exercise in style.
That's another thing too I gotta give too. It's the most fun, I would say the most fun I've had watching a Scorsese film in a long time. His films have been great, but this one was very entertaining. I'm talking, and that it had a fun, pulpy feel to it. Had a good pace. Things kept happening.
Jeff, what'd you think?
Surprises.
No, are you done? I don't want to interrupt.
No.
Like you guys sometimes do to me.
Got for a capsule.
Oh, what is that?
Okay.
Where does that come from?
Well, I have to say, I am a huge Martin Scorsese fan. I didn't hate the film, but I didn't love it as much as you guys did. I agree with you about the cinematography. I like the cameos by actors, which I thought were going to be more supporting roles, but it seemed to me more like half of them were just there for that one scene, and then they totally disappear. And, after seeing the film, I understand why their roles were like that. But I just had a few problems with the film. Again, unlike Edwin, I wouldn't say it's his most entertaining for me.
I didn't say it's most entertaining. It's his most entertaining film in a while.
Yeah. But I I'm not going to say, I was never bored, I can say it. And there's plenty of things I love about the film, but I would have to say I more liked the film more than anything. I'm not saying it's a failure, but the thing that more stood out to me was more the camera work. I've never been a fan of Mark Ruffalo, so to me he was okay. Patricia Clarkson was excellent. And I was surprised that Ted Levine, out of all the performances, was the one that got me the most interested in the film. And I wanted to discuss the ending without spoiling it, but there is no way to really do it.
Spoiler.
But
Turn away.
I liked the ending in the fact that I kind of think Leonardo DiCaprio's character wanted to get lobotomized.
Well, that's obvious.
That, and by the way, I think Scorsese made that a little clearer than it was in the book.
And
I had to reread that several times to figure out what was going on there. Whereas in the movie, I think visually he made it clearer.
They made it clearer that obviously at the end he's just like, I can't deal with this pain. Let me not live with it anymore.
And I liked that arc of the story. But generally, I would say I really did enjoy it. I'm not the biggest fan of it. It wouldn't go on like my favorite of Scorsese's, but I thought it was an interesting experiment for him.
Well, I'm in the minority because my favorite Scorsese film, and everyone looks at me like I'm crazy and on crack. I don't give a shit.
New York?
Now if you would have said that, I would have.
No, I'd be really flaming gay if that was it. No, my favorite Scorsese film would be Casino. Because Casino to me
that's a good film.
I'm not totally see that. I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah, you know when people get after me and say, how can you like Goodfellas? It's just Goodfellas in a casino. I said, but it's so quotable. It's probably the most beautifully shot Scorsese film ever.
Robert Richardson.
I mean, that is the most gore. And the title sequence, which we have talked about by Sal Bass, actually on our, because we talked about Sal Bass.
We love Sal
Bass.
Soundtrack.
And it's, of course, I think Sharon Stone's best performance. In fact, she comes very close to even stealing the film from some of the other actors. But I got to say, people said Joe Pesci is basically playing the same character he played in Goodfellas. I don't think so.
Totally different.
It's a totally different character. And I like that. And also, people don't give credit to De Niro, because De Niro's performance is completely different. He is just a guy who's not a really wise guy. He's just a guy trying to keep everything in motion and keep going, But anyway, not to get on Casino.
Mike, what'd you
another
think
great movie.
Shutter Island.
Me?
Yes, go.
I could almost take a carbon copy of Jeff's comments and apply them to mine. I liked it. I didn't love it. I didn't love it at all, really. I mean, I liked it. I agree with you guys 100% that it was a complete. It was Scorsese showing off in a good way. Like he's taken his encyclopedia knowledge of film that could probably put most, if not all, filmmakers to shame, and really just showed his stuff, just really strutted his technical stuff, his ability to tell a story. My main problem with the film really isn't with the film so much, it's more with the story. The story left me cold. The ending left me cold. I thought if this guy is going to go with the pulpy, and this is more of a Dennis Lehane problem than a Martin Scorsese problem. I just didn't like the way he ended the story. But
then again, Scorsese could have changed the ending.
That's very true.
But I thought it worked very well because I found his anguish.
It left me cold, and I thought it would have been much more interesting to see him just being dropped off, on the other side of the island, having to start his life over alone and just like this stark person. That's just my opinion. Or hell, we could have went ultra pulpy and really off into left field and had him be almost like he was like in a dark room being he was captured by Nazis or something. I mean, just something far left. The pain and the coming lobotomy. Like I said, in my opinion, it just left me cold.
It was sort of a similar ending too to another film, Brazil.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
But somehow that worked for me, and I don't know why.
What I liked about the ending, I agree the ending was like this overkill twist ending. It's all, it was all like a role-playing game kind of thing. We've seen that before. But what I liked about it was it wasn't like this pat, okay, we're just going to end it there. Because like, the usual case, it's like they make the big reveal, and then the psychiatrist gives a big lecture about what really happened, and that's the end of the movie.
It's like
and you might have like a final sinister shot.
It's like
Whereas here, they actually brought it down to earth, where Ben Kingsley's character was like, I can't do this with you anymore.
Yeah.
I've tried everything I can.
To me, I guess it may have worked better if they would have ended it with Kingsley or Ruffalo, I forget which character, asking him again who he was and why he was there and so on and so forth. And you hear that resignation in his voice, like, I am this person and I am here because of this reason. And just the weariness and him sitting down on the bed and realizing what this is all led up to. That would have been kind of interesting. I think I would have been more satisfied to have it end right there, to see, oh, is this guy going to make progress or is he going to fall back?
I like the ending where he decides to go for the lobotomy. I like that final. I
like that too, because you understand the anguish.
I didn't.
I like the way they unraveled the whole mystery.
I like the sort of ambiguity of Ruffalo's character kind of figuring out what he's doing, you know, but he can't stop it.
And I also do not care for Mark Ruffalo. I think anytime I see the man in a film, I keep thinking of, he's still that doofus from You Can Count on Me. I just see this doofus every time. But yet here he's not that bad.
I know what you're saying, because I've seen him in a few films and he can be really very annoying. Like one film that I think it drives me crazy that I can't stand to watch him in is Collateral with Tom Cruise. I think he's just absolutely awful in that. He can be good, but he's a very one-note actor sometimes.
I don't even think he was good in Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, and I love that film. I didn't think he was good in that. There's a lot of stuff. He keeps getting cast, and I can't figure it out because he doesn't really. I think he's got like these leading man good looks, but
I don't know. I don't entirely agree with that. I thought he was very good in Zodiac. I thought he was very good in Zodiac. I thought he was good in Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. In fact, at first I didn't realize that was him.
Go back and watch that again.
Bother me.
But
Sunshine.
I mean, he just played like the little nerd guy that was. I thought Elijah Wood's character was more interesting in Eternal Sunshine.
I mean, he played what the role required.
What about what would you think?
Wait a second, you're not a Ruffalo fan, so
neither am I. I'm just saying.
Zodiac is probably the best movie that Mark Ruffalo ever did, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, to be fair, I haven't seen Zodiac.
Well, it's a great movie.
You should.
Probably the best thing I think David Fincher ever did. Let me ask you this: what about Leonardo DiCaprio? What did you think of him?
Fantastic.
I think it's probably one of the better
Fantastic.
performances.
He does a fascinating performance, actually.
I love the shaking and
knowing, like, going into it, what his like having known going into it what his character was all about. It was really interesting to watch what he was doing with it.
I don't know how you two feel, you two being Edwin and Jeff, but I know Eric and I are both really big fans of Leonardo DiCaprio and have been for a long time.
I've been a fan of his the minute I saw him on screen. I
kind of do.
I liked him ever since I saw
This Boy's Life.
Yeah,
I saw This Boy's Life. I saw it in the theater. I was like one of the only people there, and I said, "Wow, this kid's going somewhere."
Yeah, exactly.
Ever since Quick and the Dead.
Oh God, don't remind me.
Kids going places.
Well, look who else was in that movie. Russell Crowe, for God's sake. So people did go places.
He was all right.
But he went somewhere.
This Boy's Life, it started, and hey, I wouldn't say it's one of the most fun movies I've seen Scorsese. I got to disagree with you there. I mean, I've had a fun time with all his movies. The Aviator was a lot of fun.
The Departed was a lot of fun.
I mean, The Departed is just fucking awesome.
Yeah.
And Gangs of New York has its problems, but it's still an entertaining film.
Yes,
and you get these great, wonderful
Gangs of New York, I told you this recently. I wasn't such a big fan of Gangs of New York the first time I saw it, but I've revisited it, and I've totally changed my mind on that. Second time watching it, I was like, this is a much better film than I did.
The problem I would really like to see, I know Scorsese does not believe in the term director's cut, but I really would love to see all this extra footage that he shot about the draft riots, because the whole film, he really didn't want to do a movie about the gangs. He wanted to do a movie about the draft riots, and there's a lot of stuff that you can see that there's these big epic things that
it's still threaded throughout the film.
It's threaded, but you can feel that they were trimmed significantly, because he had a contract where he had to have the movie under 3 hours. I would love to see this 4.5-hour version that exists.
Well, the thing is that the draft riots are sort of undercut by by the military coming in and bombing everything. That's the gang fight, because the draft riots in itself is a fascinating story.
That's one of my favorite parts of American history.
I was more, because I read Gangs of New York, and you can't do a faithful adaptation of Gangs of New York. It's a non-fiction narrative about not just the gangs, but the whole Tammany Hall politics that's going on. I would like to see more of that Tammany Hall politics.
Oh God, honestly. I would like to see more of Jim Broadbent doing Boss Tweed.
Yeah, which
I mean, one of the wonderful moments of that film.
But we're talking about
all the bodies are in there.
Shutter Island being his pulp film. Well, Gangs of New York was his pulp film. That was the closest he's done to like an action flick or a western.
Mm-hmm. That's the most commercial film he's done at that. At that time.
I think the film to compare Shutter Island with is, and you guys might not like this, but Cape Fear. I think it's a very.
Why would we not like that?
I don't like Cape Fear. I think it's my least favorite Scorsese.
Oh, I love Cape Fear.
But I don't like it. But I do agree there's a lot of similarities.
There are a lot of similarities.
But I think Shutter Island is far superior. I will say, though, about this one, I do like that Scorsese tried to do a different type of film than his usual type of film, and that's why I really enjoyed this one.
I love Cape Fear.
Well, I don't.
I like Cape Fear.
I don't like Cape Fear. I can't say I love Robert De Niro is absolutely awful. He has one of the worst Southern accents I've ever heard in my life.
I love Cape Fear.
I think it's a piece of shit. But I will say, Freddie Francis
De Niro is so much fun in that film.
Pardon me all over.
Well, it's more of a campy performance.
Yeah.
But he got nominated for a fucking Oscar.
But actually, all the performances are kind of campy.
Freddie Francis did the
That's
cinematography.
what I said. I just said that. That's the only thing I like about the movie is Freddie Francis.
And I love how he did the subversive cameos, where like all the characters, all the actors that were in the original film were put in complete antithetical parts.
That's part of the film.
And it was, I love that.
I love that.
The only one missing was Telly Savalas, because he was dead of cancer. But
no, he
still.
wasn't. He was still alive. He died in 95.
No.
He died in 95. There's a movie called Mind Killer.
No, I think Telly Savalas was dead before that.
No, he was still alive. Trust me, I just saw it. A terrible movie by Fred Olin, right? Mind Killer. Oh, so I know he's dying then. But anyway.
Let's talk about Klaus Kinski.
Yeah, Klaus Kinski. Fuck you, I am Jesus. I had to put that in there.
We got to do a Klaus Kinski episode.
A Klaus Kinski mini review.
Well, don't forget, this is the.
This isn't even a mini review.
I am Jesus Christ.
This is a whole show on Shutter Island.
Well, I guess this goes to the thing that we can talk about a movie for a full half hour.